Good afternoon. Welcome to the New Yorker Festival. This is the fashion panel. We will not be discussing Sarah Palin. And our theme today is Fashion the Next Generation. At various previous New Yorker fashion events, we've had established designers, we've had costume designers, we've had a great industrial designer, we've had people at the top of their form, at the top of their profession. We felt this year, this is a season, the theme of which is change, and of new faces and new ideas, that it would be very interesting to invite the three best students recommended by their schools from three of the world's leading institutes of fashion. And so I'm very, very honored to welcome the next generation, Louise Markey, who has graduated from Central St. Martin's College of Art and Design in London. Louise was born in Australia, and she received a BA in fashion first from Sydney's University of Technology. And she designed women's shirts for Burberry for a while before enrolling in Central St. Martin's, where she earned a master's degree. And last February, she launched her own new label, LF Markey. Joeri van Yper, is that right?
That's right.
Good. Is from Antwerp, a great cauldron of avant-garde fashion. And he graduated with a master's degree from the Antwerp Royal Academy of Fine Arts. He trained with Stephen Jones for hat design and with the great Dries van Noten for prints, Olivier Rizzo for styling, and he's also worked with Veronique Branchino. His thesis collection had a very poetic title, Frozen Overexposed Stars. We'll see something from it. Makoto Takada grew up in Japan, in Nagasaki. He moved to this country when he was 18, initially to study business, but he followed his passion, as one should do, and enrolled in FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology, where he earned a BA. He worked as a pattern maker for Marc Jacobs and Ralph Lauren, and anyone who knows fashion knows that the real both workhorse and atlas of the fashion world is the pattern maker. His work at FIT has won departmental and critics awards and Cosmo Girls Born to Lead competition. The label XOXO, or Shosho, I'm not sure how they pronounce it, will sell his designs in their holiday collection this winter. One interesting thing, which is completely by chance, is that Louise, Mako, and Joeri represent the three great avant-garde traditions of modern fashion: Belgium, English, and Japanese. And I wonder if that has influenced if this sort of being on the cutting edge or coming from fashion worlds that have really changed modern design, what that means to you as students. Anybody?
Well, I came to U.S. when I was 18. So when I originally moved to U.S., I was planning to study some media or movie business. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't really thinking of fashion as a career yet. So I wasn't focused on Japanese avant-garde side. So after I came to US, I started realizing what Japanese fashion means, and rediscovering my culture after I came here. So it's a little different, like influenced differently.
Uh-huh. You've actually worked with some great Belgian designers. Was it always something? Was it in the air of Antwerp?
Yeah, of course. Like the school was, up until they graduated, actually not on the map. So of course, like the school is forever like connected with these names. And when you're from Belgium, it's like this export product that you just can't look next to. It's like really there. And yeah, also Belgium is a really small country, and like when you're in this like scene or like this branch, everybody knows everybody, and it just you're always influenced by it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I guess Central St. Martin's is sort of like the Harvard of fashion. It's produced so many extraordinary designers.
it definitely had a massive, massive influence on my style and my work. And being at Burberry as well, I think definitely being in London had a profound effect on my design style. But recently I've actually noticed that my Australianness is definitely, the effect of that is visible in my work too, especially seeing some other Australian designers coming up, getting more popular now.
I guess it's sort of like the relationship between Australian literature and British literature. There's such energy coming from.
Yeah, definitely in colour and stuff, and simplicity, I think, from the Australian side.
Well, one of the raison d'être of this panel is so that you can see the work of our guests, and we're going to have the first look come out. This is by Louise. So tell us about this.
Okay, this is from the collection that I've just literally finished and shown in London in September. And this collection was inspired by lots of different things that clash. So Elizabethan clothing was the first thing. Active sportswear, I always take inspiration from that. Folk toys, mainly for the colour. And I can't remember the other thing.
Well, the geometry is the geometry is very.
Yeah, definitely. That's sort of a given with my work, that there's always that. But the Elizabethan farthingale was sort of for the main volume inspiration. So this piece here, I guess, was inspired by the circular farthingale that they wear, but I'm just allowing the shapes to collapse. And then sort of T-shirt influences just for the necklines and stuff like that.
It's a text with lots of wonderful references.
Yeah.
It's sort of almost like a soccer ball, too, a bit.
Yeah,
no?
Yeah. And I like to use sort of more expensive and cheaper fabrics together at the same time, but then also tailor the whole thing. So you just get a mashup of opposites, I guess. And
is this a dress that's meant to be a limited edition? Is this something that, yes, Joeri?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I don't think there'd be an enormous market. Well, I suppose it takes a lot of guts to wear that. So this is sort of, it's sort of starting off my label and just saying, you know, these are some things that I stand for, and this is an example of how that could be.
It's also sort of color field painting, very, you know, sort of very much so. It's very, very rich. May we see the next model? Would you like to tell us about this?
This is my graduation collection. This was the first silhouette. When I started thinking about the collection, I was inspired by this story that I heard, and it was like about this couple that did like very adventurous trips all the time, and it was about their last trip, and they wanted to climb a mountain, and then they actually froze to death on this mountain. And
they froze to death?
Yeah.
Oh wow!
And they in the last attempt to save themselves, they wrapped themselves into this metallic foil, and with the next morning, the sun coming up, you know, had these 2 stars shining from the mountain up into the valley, which was inhabited by Inuit culture. So I thought it was a very nice, inspiring story to start from, and I took the atmosphere and also more technical elements. I wanted to have this clash between, on one hand, this very natural, ethnic Inuit culture, and to really clash it with this hiking, mountain climber, clothing and equipment. So. This for sure you see in the shoes. It's inspired.
These are handmade. You made these yourself, right?
Yeah, handcraft shoes. Yeah.
They're
and I took the snowboard binders from snowboards, of course, and I wanted to mix them in together with this very natural look. Like the whole silhouette is made out of wool, and like the patches on the dress are from wood, and like also in the bracelet I used mountain crystals, and yeah, mixed them with the wood as well. So.
And the knitting was done by
Me.
By you.
Yeah.
Knitting was done by you. It's extraordinary. The hat is wonderful.
Thank you. It's inspired also like on the Inuit hairdress.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a sort of love and death. It's a very romantic story, sort of love and death in the mountains.
I'm always like, I mean, I can't really be inspired by just like, you know, like facts or like really clear things. It must be some kind of atmosphere around it. Like for me, like to be able to build up your color palette, to be able to choose your materials, must be, yeah, for people, of course, when they see it, it's just clothes, but when you're making it, it has to be more than just clothes. It has to be like the whole, yeah, thing to build it up.
That's actually a very interesting point. Thank you. I know you probably want to. The shoes they actually look rather more comfortable than they seem. They're not quite as high as they seem. But do you tell yourself stories when you design? What about the rest of you? Is it form?
I'm very fact, just like T-shirt, Elizabethan dress, done.
Yeah. I don't necessarily make the story, but I do take inspiration from movies and things. Mm-hmm. Actually, most of the collection and design, I take inspiration or color from movies and combine together and then make into my own.
Great. We're going to see Mako's look now. Thank you, so. Great, thanks. Mm-hmm. The first of Mako's. Each designer has chosen. He or she has chosen the three pieces, they rather than I or than. Oh, I really want to thank, I should have done this in the beginning, our wonderful stylist, Yuki James, who is in a way the impresario who coordinated this and helped put the program together and did a great job. So this is Mako's first design. Would you like to tell us about this?
Yes, the inspiration for this look or the collection was, the two movies, Atonement, that when came out in last February, and also the City Lights, that's the movie from a Charlie Chaplin movie. And then those two, I wasn't thinking that's going to be my theme or anything. I was just watching it and I started picking up the vibe from the movie, and then at the end I started realizing, oh, that was where the inspiration was from.
The green dress, in Atonement, that green dress is...
Well, not necessarily. Actually, Atonement was the sadness and the warrior, but has a blue tone to the clothing she wears. And also the Sea Lights was a black and white movie, but they had a lot of floral image, black and white. So I took the black and white floral image to the lace. And then the lace can be sweet fabric, but always has a little bit of a sad, melancholy, longing feel about it. So I took the lace, but I didn't want lace to be hanging. I want to have a lace to have a sculptural feeling to it. So I, sew it onto the vinyl, so that has a still see-through feeling of the lace. It's still there, but it's sculptural.
Would you like to show us the...
Oh, sure. On the movie City Lights, but I started thinking what the Charlie Chaplin stands for, and what he stands for is sense of humor, and anything that happens, a war, anything, he makes the fun out of it and makes it like a life. So I started thinking, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to put a lot of sense of humor into clothing. So I took the sleeve actually made a bow out of sleeve. So it's humor, or my sense of humor. And then, and skirt has a zipper, and inside the zipper there's a pleats in there.
Can we just see? I'd love to just see the skirt.
Yeah, this skirt that has a zipper, which is a pocket, functioning pocket, but I put the pleats inside, so it has a little fun to it. And do you want to take this out? And then there's an exposed zipper, which getting very popular. Exposed zipper became very popular in the past 2 seasons or so, and I picked up the vibe and used that, and this is the look that I took inspiration and got an idea when I was putting my shirt into the hanger, and then I thought, oh, this looks good, and just draped it like that, and it happened. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. We were talking backstage about these very sumptuous and luxurious clothes that were part of student thesis collections. You know, it's like when you write your term paper, you buy a ream of paper for $4.99, but when they do their graduate collections, it's incredibly costly. And you were saying that you get some subsidies, but only for cotton. Is that?
For FIT, Cotton Incorporated gave us some money.
But otherwise, the leather and the silk and the wood and all of that stuff you have to finance.
Yeah. Well, with us, it's like in Antwerp, it's close to Paris. Some of the students, they went to Paris, like to Première Vision or other fabric fairs to try to find sponsors, but it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Some of them got some really small sponsoring, but it's very hard to get. So you actually have to finance from A to Z everything. Yeah.
I'm just curious, I think most people probably don't know, in fact, the kind of education, you have all created these yourselves. You are the technicians and the designers. It's your, sort of a one-man band here. So you're trained to do every aspect of design, from the patterns to the sewing, to the draping, to the cutting, to the sketching. Is that true?
Right. I mean, in the real world, not necessarily you're going to do everything.
Right.
But in school, it teaches you. I mean, I think what school did to me is that not necessarily the technique and everything, but they're going to make you realize who you are by the time you graduate. Because you try everything at the beginning, like you try to put sequins on it, and maybe you wanted to do in latex and spandex and everything. And at the end, you start realizing, this is not me, maybe this is my style, and then picking up all the things that you did in the past and start illuminating things and adding things to your style, and then that's school. That was my school.
Did you have a calling for fashion before you started? Did you know from a young age you wanted to do this?
I didn't really realize it, but when you look back, of course, it's quite obvious that it was always there. But at a young age, I was always drawing and, of course, always creative. But I didn't really, at that time, and I was also by my parents, and they're not very arty-minded, so it didn't really come to my mind that you could actually have a career with doing this. So I after high school, I was in boarding school, and it was this very narrow-minded thinking school, and I was so fed up with it that I just decided now I really want to do something that I really really like, and it doesn't necessarily need to be something obvious that you can just afterwards have a job right away or whatever. It's just
you wanted the time to dream.
Yeah, I just wanted to experiment.
Yes.
And do what I like.
And growing up in Sydney, is that where you grew up in Sydney?
Yeah, in Sydney. Yeah, I didn't really decide to go into fashion until at the very end of high school. Up until that point, I wanted to be a fine artist, and then I decided that I didn't want to be poor. And so I decided to go into architecture, and so far as to sort of, do experience in firms and stuff. And I think I was attracted to the immediacy of fashion and the idea that you can create a complete image from, the way it's photographed, the way your labels look. You can sort of control the whole image of a fashion label. I think that's what...
Immediacy is it's a very good insight. I mean, I think that's so important. And I think what people also don't realize is the stress of the immediacy, churning out something new 2 or 3 or 4 times a year. Let's see the next round of designs. The first model, please. We're staying in the same order, so this is again by Louise. And also I want to point out that Louise designed the wonderful bracelet and shoes too. So tell us about this.
So this dress I decided to bring along as an example of how the same signature look, I guess, which is part of my label, can be reinterpreted in a much more commercial and wearable way. So this dress, I mean, I would wear, and I think it's sort of much less structured, but it's got the same sort of inspirations behind it. And yeah, I guess you could wear that sort of day to evening. And the jewellery is actually corrugated cardboard cast in gold. And there was a big corrugated cardboard theme going the whole way through, sort of that mixture between expensive and cheap materials. And so those heels on the shoes are also have been corrugated and stuff. But the shoes were actually inspired again by Elizabethan slippers, but mixed in with what the English call a plimsoll. I don't know if you call it that here, like a sports shoe, school shoe. Yeah.
So these were, was this part of a summer collection?
Yeah, SS09.
Right, of course in February it would have been. And may we have, thank you, may we have the next model, please? So that is something that you're going to be reproducing for your label, in different fabrics and different
colours.
And this again is by Joeri.
Yeah, this look came to I actually put a new one together because I had my graduation collection was 12 silhouettes, and this jacket belonged to another silhouette, but yeah, I thought it was maybe interesting to show them together as we only showed 3 silhouettes. This jacket was inspired by a coat, Inuit coat made out of intestines of animals, and yeah, it was like how you say bowel, sewn together, so you had this like stripes in the jacket all around the jacket, and I wanted to have like the same transparency and the same like feeling, but then of course like with this very like technical mixture, like and the material is actually a rubber fabric, so yeah, that's how it came to my mind. And under it I have this is a fur top made of sheep fur, and like to have this poetic story a little bit in the clothes as well. I took like these birds, and it's made up out of rabbit fur. So
the gray fur is mouton.
Mouton, yeah.
And the black is rabbit.
Rabbit, yeah.
It looks like a mutant animal.
Yeah, you could. And then the skirt is in a gray wool, and also again with the wood sequins.
Wood sequins, I love that. It's just a very poetic wood sequins, because you always think of sequins as either tiny little flashy little things, and these are. They also look like sort of atavistic coins that might have been traded, bone coins, some currency.
You could see it as that as well. But like, what really was funny, you don't see it right now, but if you look really closely, like each sequin has in the middle some kind of twist of nature. It's like a little star inside, and that also like completely referred to the story, like my poetic story. It's like,
the frozen, this exposed stars.
Yeah, it's like this puzzle pieces falling in place, like that everything makes sense in the end.
And where did you made these? But where did they come from? How did you fashion them?
Actually, I just took a branch and and then started like cutting them like into slices.
Rounds.
Yeah, and then polishing them so you get the design of the stripes of the tree, and also like the star that's in every center of the sequin.
So it's survivalist haute couture.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. May we see the next?
Okay.
The next. Oh yes. Do you want to take the wonderful?
Thank you.
There's an extraordinary scene in a film. I think it's The Immigrants, in which a pioneer family and the father and son are caught in a blizzard, and they have a cow, and he kills the cow and he slices it open, and he puts his little boy inside the freshly killed cow to keep him warm until he can get help. It's sort of the
Yeah.
intestine raincoat reminded me of this story. And this is Mako's.
Yes, actually, this was the look that I created first, like the very first.
Uh-huh.
So directly inspired by the Charlie Chaplin look.
Uh-huh.
And then Charlie Chaplin had a mid-heavy
The little
silhouette.
tramp, yes.
Yeah.
This.
So that's what I picked up the vibe from, and I made a Jodhpur suit with the jacket. And then the sleeve, there's a blouse inside that it's actually more inspired by Atonement side, which is a flowery, soft, romantic, a little bit of sadness. So I'm going to explain that.
Yeah.
So this jacket, so also continuing the idea of sense of humor. So I tried to make it, can you turn around? Look like the jacket, there's a two jacket on top of each other. But it's on the front, looks like the one jacket. And there's a zipper on the side and a lot of details that I like to put. And first I made this jacket and pants separately and totally different fabric. But I realized maybe it's going to look better if it becomes a suit. Because I'm really into the idea of sportswear, which is separate. Just like you guys are dressed up right now, like, you don't buy an entire silhouette. You create your own. So I try to do that with my head. So I start changing the fabrics inside my head and all kinds of things. And then at the end, I realized, maybe it's crashing. So I made it into the same color. But starting from the different fabric was actually helpful to me because it makes me realize that what goes better with what in your head doesn't necessarily goes in the real life. And it's something that I have to
An understatement, yes.
Yeah, I have to admit as a designer. And so I made it into suit, and I think it's great. And can I take that jacket? This blouse has also detail too from the movie Atonement that I had a really romantic feeling and the water flow and the fountain. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to capture that. So can you turn around the back? I put a little bit of detail, which is the gathering that is creating the water flowing feeling. And also I create, I layered two exact same pattern on top of each other, so that has a dimension to it. And it's just not the all same tone of prints, but it has a slightly three-dimensional feeling about the prints.
Well, the jacket has the feeling in the back, especially of the petal, of the petals of a flower,
it was
dark.
That's an interesting point because when I first made the first sample, it was squared off because that was like a tail that Charlie Chaplin was wearing. And then I thought, the rounded feelings might go better in what's happening right now because not necessarily what you want to do is what's happening at this point. So I picked up what the trend is and what kind of mood that people and America or the world is. And so I kind of rounded everything up and made it a softer feeling.
It's really beautiful.
There you go.
Want it. Yes, but my body stops where the legs of that begin. So what's really interesting is sort of watching the clothes and talking to the panelists is that the two gentlemen are profound romantics, and Louise is the minimalist, architectural, no details, no embellishment.
True.
So is there, so many in the past, there were great women couturiers, but fashion was dominated by men. What's the shape of in your generation? Do these things occur? I know I have a 20-year-old son. He's age, race, all that stuff is really so not important to his generation. I don't know. In the fashion world, does gender matter? Do women design in a certain way and men in another way?
I don't know if they design in a certain way or another way, but I think it does have an effect on your label. I chose to call my label LF Markey because I wanted to keep it genderless. Didn't want my name Louise to be there, mainly because I thought if I go into menswear, I don't know, I thought maybe having a woman's name on a men's garment would, make it not attractive for a man to wear. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but that was sort of what was going through my head.
And do you, it's been certainly said of the great women couturiers of the 20th century, that they sort of designed for, they could design for themselves, whereas men had an ideal woman, and it produced a rather different approach to fashion, knowing your own body. Maybe it is more grounded and down to earth versus the great romance and poetry of the other. I don't know if that means anything.
I think that you have a point, because like a Gucci label, the Tom Ford was designing, which was wonderful, but had a feeling of not like too exposed in a way, the cutouts, and not necessarily women wants to expose that much sometimes. But it was wonderful. I loved it. But now the Gucci's the female designer, blanking with her name.
Right?
Yeah. And she designs more wearable, what women really wants to wear. And that's something that, always there, because women think of themselves and how they want to dress. Like me, I don't really think of what I want to wear, but I want to see what, looks like.
Do you think women dress for each other or for men?
I think
Or for
I dress for
themselves.
other women or myself.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true.
It's like when I dress myself, I dress quite conservatively. So probably if I try to design some menswear clothing, it's not going to be crazy, like ruffle coming down or anything like that.
In the Times crossword puzzle this morning, I have to wake up an hour early to make sure that I can get it done before doing anything else. There's a quote from Einstein, and he said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." And I wonder if it seemed like a good quote for a discussion of fashion, because of course, I don't know, is that true? You have to have tremendous technical ability to realize your ideas. But what is the balance between the idea and the object?
Well, I mean, like, also when you just start the academy, I didn't know anything about like the production in the end. It was like I didn't know anything about pattern, I didn't know how to knit, I didn't know anything. And also they don't teach you actually, they just give you a few basic rules and then it's off to you. And I mean, when you like make something or when you're drawing something or you want to like you're designing, I mean, you really are so eager that you really want to make it that you always find a way to realize it. It doesn't necessarily need to be like the right reason, but you always find your way like to realize it.
To solve the challenges. Let's see the last three designs, starting with Louise's last look. I would have worn the first one.
Would you?
Absolutely.
You're rare then. So this one was cut for a slightly narrower shoulder. Just shouldn't pull like that. But this one is I guess a slightly more literal interpretation of. I remember the other thing that I was inspired by. It was 80s cocktail dresses. And
it was what?
80s cocktail dresses into the mix, yeah. So this is where that comes in. So it's a T-shirt on top, but then in a woven fabric, in a poplin, and then with the satin coming in for the layers. And
still the little Elizabethan.
The what?
The little Elizabethan detail.
Yeah, exactly.
The sort of stomacher detail.
Exactly, yeah. Which, yeah, I've had that for the last 2 seasons, the Elizabethan thing. And next season I'm going to go into Tudor, so let's go further.
But if you just turn around, it's very, very subtle. The zipper is concealed in the skirt, and then it's exposed in the.
Yeah, that technical nightmare actually, to be honest. But basically, I've got exposed zippers, but then we have. It's complicated. We had to do that just because of the way it was constructed and the way you have to get into the garment. But yeah, I think little things like that in minimal clothing are key. The pocket on the front is, you probably can't see from there, but it's bellowed so that you've got sort of extra volume in there, and it's also so you don't have any top stitching whatsoever coming onto the top. So yeah, little things like that I think in minimalism are very important.
And they're very sort of Second Empire colors, that green, that sort of Napoleonic mixture of that green and the blue. They're so beautiful. And then the sort of austerity of the white.
Yeah, the colours I just kind of get just by just grab.
Yeah.
Just whatever sort of comes and.
Yeah, you do tell yourself stories. We know that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then we'll have the next one, please.
The silhouette was one of the last silhouettes in my collection, and because I was playing with more stiffer materials and then very loose and then like fluently materials, this is for sure one of the where the fluent has the more power in the silhouette. So. I kept the color very straight and very like more like sculptured, and I used a material for it that's actually like woven metal. So the whole upper part is like real metal woven, and I added then these embroideries like with of course again the crystals and the ethnical patterns. And then from there on, I made like a draping of silk, like to give a bit of contrast to each other, like this firm sculptured upper part and the fluently like falling fabric under it.
And the back is also very beautiful. It's sort of, if you just turn around for the detail of the back, the detail of the front is very, very rich, and the detail of the back is very, very simple, but. Sort of like the closing of an envelope almost, or the sealing of the message. It's very, very beautiful. So when you how many pieces did you have to produce for your graduation for your final?
Actually, I didn't count pieces, but you only get one task in the beginning of the year. It's like make a collection of 12 silhouettes, 12 girls, and then. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. So, or you can make it like each girl like wearing 5 pieces at a time, or you just make one dress, or you just have to fill it in your own. But I made like a balance because like everything that I designed, I make and sew myself. So yeah, it's of course exaggerated if you're gonna overload every silhouette because yeah, we don't have enough time to make it in the end.
Right. Thank you. We're going to see the last, Mako's last piece.
So this look I created for the Emmy Award, for this past Emmy Award season. For my friend of mine, Kerry Preston, who is the actress, she's in True Blood HBO series now. And well, that was, I knew that I wanted to show you guys for this event. So I kept the color theme the same, but I have to keep in mind that this is a red carpet, which is no mistake allowed. Yeah. So I wanted to keep the silhouette fluttering for the ladies, and then there's a demand that, some parts you want to hide, some parts you want to show. So I thought of that. So I kept this part very open, which makes the neckline and the face very small. And then kept the tight silhouette up to the hip, and it released it, which elongates the body and everything. So this look was not necessarily my romantic piece or my head working for like my fantasy, but more about thinking and what works and what doesn't.
It's anatomy. Anatomy is a big part of fashion, understanding the anatomy, a woman's anatomy, and just the way you describe it, making the head small and elongating the body. And
right. So that was challenging, but it's also fun because at the end, what you really want to see is somebody wearing your garment, because garment is dead if it's just hanging on a hanger. So that was a dream come true at a collaboration with my friend, and that was wonderful.
Well, I'm just thinking of a Japanese word, the word kimono, which means the thing worn, no?
Right.
And if it ceases to be worn, it ceases to be alive, as you say. this is extraordinary. I wanted to ask a question because we were talking again in the green room about the coincidences that occur in a fashion season when people all over the world, a great designer, a student, someone in India, someone in Paris, will come up with the notion of lace or ribbons. For example, Lanvin interviewed Albert Elbaz recently, and he was talking about the idea just popped into his head to do a collection in ribbons. And you had no idea or connection with that, and yet you also were thinking in terms of using ribbon as a... What's this synchronicity in fashion? How does that...
I don't know, but even his piece and my piece, you saw the coats that transparent.
Yes.
Transparent was very hot last season. And it's not like somebody told you, Mako, transparent gonna be hot. No, it's that you start feeling that, maybe something constructed, something vinyl, but it's, soft feeling which is transparent. And then, we both pick up the same vibe. And,
yes, and they were so different, and yet they belonged to the same species, but they were different genuses of creature. It's really interesting, and I've never understood that. But it happens also not just in fashion. That there is some sort of fourth force out there that we don't know that will.
I think it might have something to do with big exhibitions out there, or us all trolling the same bookshops. Things going onto the street. For me, I certainly look to the street. Same stuff being around, and all of us drawing inspiration from the same things.
Another word that I heard all of you say in different ways was clash. And I think that's very interesting, the notion of putting things together, of real heterogeneity, things that you really don't think, the opposite of matchy-matchy, the opposite of classicism, the notion of classical unity. It feels a bit as if there's a willed disunity in what you're doing. I don't know if I'm reading into it.
Yeah, it's like, when you're designing, you're trying always to find new ways of inventing beauty over and over and over again. And yeah, it's easy to just look back and take that example literally and just transfer it into something new. But it's even more interesting if you can do it in a way that's never seen before, and taking elements which at first sight maybe could not fit at all together, but then when you find a way to put them together, and then somehow it works, then it's even more interesting fashion-wise.
I think that's very eloquent. It's very eloquently put, because there's been sort of too much recycling, and there's sort of too much sampling. And there's not a lot of real invention, not a lot of real risk-taking. What you were saying before, maybe this comes from the mountaineering and the survivalist sort of spirit, the idea of not being unstoppable, that you're going to find a way to create something. I think you all, your work is really original, which is sort of why, obviously, you were recommended to show it. Thank you very much. This is spectacular. Dress. Also, the exposed zipper, the function of the zippers, which we've seen in several pieces by all of you, have sort of made some sort of articulated the closing, the closing of the garments. But one last question: where do you guys go from here? You've finished school, you've started your label. What are your plans? What's next for you, for each of you?
Yeah, for the moment, it's a bit like the black hole, of course. It was 4 years of intense working, and you don't get to think about anything else than only fashion, because you have to be finished with everything in time. So you just and now that it's finished, it's oh yeah, and what now, But I've done my portfolio now, and I brought it along with me to New York, and I'm trying to find a job for the moment, to get experienced and just work your way into network and people, and because that's also part of it, of course. And maybe when you're experienced enough and you gathered some money and maybe an own brand, I don't know, but that's not for now just yet.
It's Joeri's first visit to the United States. Yes. He arrived yesterday, and Mako, what's next for you?
Pretty much same thing. I just graduated. And then I have been working for my friend as a pattern maker at this point, helping her, not full-time, part-time. But being pattern maker really helps to get a connection because everybody wants you. Like show season, like everybody's calling like crazy, and I need you tomorrow. So that kind of connection, I'm using those connections to recognize me as a designer, which is hard because people know you as a pattern maker and suddenly you show a portfolio, guess what, I'm a designer too. And they were saying, oh, you too? But that's, you have to like get over it. And then once people start realizing who you are, in general, New York fashion world is very friendly.
Is it?
I think, because, I mean, they are, because they're always looking for somebody good, and then they're not, the best thing you can do is surround yourself with good people. And if you're a good designer, you have to surround yourself with good people, best people in the world. So they're always looking for somebody. So I'm pretty optimistic that somebody's going to pick me up, but at this point, nobody offered me yet. But
I want that tuxedo suit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and also the economy is going pretty sadly, bad. It's the worst, I think it's the worst time to look for a job in New York.
Yeah, really.
But might change, and then, there's always jobs somewhere, has to be, not everybody's, somebody retiring at least, so.
Absolutely. Mademoiselle?
Yeah, I'm going to continue on with my own label, launching it very slowly. The dresses that you've seen here today are like my mainline collection, but I also have a smaller collection of basics, white shirts, T-shirts and things like that, and that's sort of my bread and butter there, so I make most of my sales on them. And on top of that, I've just started work as women's wear designer for Thomas Pink, and I do that 3 days a week, so 2 days on my own.
And where do you sell your own designs? Where is your label sold?
Actually, it's my first sales season in Europe this season. It's currently selling in Paris, hopefully, now.
Wonderful.
So, but other than that, two boutiques in Sydney were the first to pick up the basics.
Very, very exciting. I thank you very much for coming. I hope you go to other New Yorker events. Come back next year. I don't know who's going to be here, but it will be an adventure. And thank you so much for coming so far.
Thank you.